Hello and welcome to this video tutorial brought to you by tutvid.com. Today we're going to take a look at creating this very cool, somewhat realistic neon tube effect in Photoshop. And I'm just going to walk you through how to do it. It's pretty simple to do once you know how to do it. It's just figuring out how to get to where you know how to do it. That can be kind of tricky. So we're going to go ahead and try to work through it. We're actually going to start with just a simple stock photo of this brick wall. And the stock photo is available on the free stock photography website known as the Stock Exchange. That's www.sxc.hu. I'm going to try to remember to throw a link in the description of this video so you can go and just grab the image anyway. It's completely free to download. But anyway, this is the image here, and I'm going to drag it into Photoshop and drop it, and you will see exactly what it is. It's a pretty large image. I'm not going to resize it. We're just going to work with it at its native size, which is 3008 by 2000. That's kind of important when you're following along because there are going to be some things we're going to do later on that are going to be just massive if you're not working at this huge size. Now, if you're comfortable enough using Photoshop, you can downsize the image and then just do your resizing on your own. You should be completely fine. And by resizing, I mean some of the drop shadow. We're going to be blurring a few things, so stuff like that. But if it's your first time, you don't really feel comfortable, just work with it at full size, and then go ahead and after you've done it once or twice, go ahead and make your own changes, tweak it, make it your own. So we're going to start by just adding a hue saturation adjustment layer to this right off the bat. We're going to go Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Hue Saturation. And I'm just going to hit OK. And over here in CS4, you have the Adjustments panel. If you're using anything older than CS4, you're going to have a dialog window pop up. But all we're going to do is just change the hue and saturation and brightness of this wall to make it like a cool dark alleyway. So what I want to do first is change the hue, and I'm looking for a blue, a nice blue, something like that. And I want to make it significantly darker. Something maybe like that, and maybe suck a little bit of the saturation out of it. Just like that. That looks pretty nice. Now it's kind of flat and dull though, so we want to add some more oomph back into it. Add some pops. We're going to go Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and add a Levels Adjustment Layer. You could also do curves, but for the sake of staying simple and easy, I'm going to go Levels, and we're going to hit OK. And basically all you want to do is drag the black slider to the right a little bit, and drag the white slider, drag the black slider to the right, and drag the white slider over to the left. Until you have, a decent amount of contrast happening. Something maybe like that. All right, cool. Now that we've done that, we want to go ahead and grab the Type tool. And with the Type tool, you can type with text that's any color. I'm actually going to swap my foreground and background color. I want to use white, something that I'm going to be able to see on this background. We're only going to be using our typeface as a guide for our path. And it'll all make sense in a moment. But for now, you just want to find a font that is kind of cartoony. I've got this font here called Untitled. It's a free font, and it's kind of cartoony. Just anything really that's cartoony will work. Something that has, nice flowing curves to it. Nothing that's really a sharp font, because remember, neon, it's this bent glass tube, so you're not going to get really these really sharp corners. So we're going to go with this Komika title, and I'm just going to type out the letter W, because W kind of has a lot of curving stuff going on. I'm going to hit my control key, and I'm going to scale this letter up, and sort of constrain proportions here. I'm not really too concerned with that, because again, we're not going to actually be using this text. This is simply going to be a guide. Then I'm going to hit the check key, and I'm going to drag this guy down to about the center. And the first thing right off the bat I don't like, I want to flip it. So I'm going to hit Command or Control T, and that brings up my free transform handles. I'm going to right click in there, and I'm going to go flip horizontal and press the check icon. All right, now that we've done that, you see we've got our own type layer here. That's fine. We're actually going to be getting rid of this type in just a moment. Again, we're only using it as a guide. And we're using it as a guide for our pen tool. So go grab the pen tool, and really the only important thing you need to know about the pen tool is we're drawing only using paths. We're only creating a path, not a fill shape layer, not fill pixels, or not a vector shape layer, and not fill pixels. It's the icon in the middle. It's got a little pen icon with kind of this little boxy line going around it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start by drawing our letter, but neon isn't just its own little standalone thing. It usually comes from somewhere, and in this case, it's going to be coming out of the wall, and we're going to draw the holes in the wall at the very end of this tutorial. But for now, we're just going to make the neon come from the wall and down and around our W. So I'm going to start right around here. I'm going to click once, and then I'm going to click right up here on the W, and I'm going to pull sort of like that, and then I'm going to come straight down the W to here, where I'm going to need another joint. Again, I'm taking special care to try to make sure I create these nice smooth joints. bearing in mind that this is glass tubing. So as you come through your joints, you don't have to follow the contour of the letter exactly, because remember, the letter is only here for a guide. All right, cool. So far I'm liking what I've got. Bring it right up here. And then the last one, we also need the neon to go out. It came in here, and we're just going to click and pull over here, and it's going to go right back into the wall over there. All right, great. We now have our path created. Now that we've done that, we can just shut the W layer off. We can actually just drag that double W layer right to the garbage, which is what I just did. Over here in the Paths panel, we have our work path. I'm just going to double-click on the work path and give it a name. I'm just going to call it W. That essentially saves the work path so we don't accidentally delete it later unless we actually click and drag and drop it on the garbage can. We are now ready to actually paint on this path and create the base tube shape. And we're going to start by, well, I'm going to collapse my adjustments panel there. I'm going to create a new layer by clicking on the new layer icon. And I'm going to name this layer Neon Base. And I'm going to set my foreground color to, hold on, I've got a note here. That would be F5C122. It's kind of this lightish orangey color. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to grab my brush tool. Now, my brush tool, I want a 100 pixel brush. You see here I've got 100 pixels, but the problem with this brush is the hardness is 0%. I want to make sure my hardness is at 100%. Very important. Also, make sure your opacity and flow are at 100%. Now that we've done that, we're going to go back to that Paths panel. Remember, we are working on this neon base layer. Back to the Paths panel, right-click on your path, and select Stroke Path. We're going to use the brush tool. We just changed all those settings in our brush tool, and we are not going to simulate pressure. We do not want to have that checked on. So hit OK, and we have a nice W shape. We go back to our layers. We can see there on the neon base layer we have our initial shape. Go back to the Paths panel real quick and just click anywhere down here in the gray area. That's going to deselect that path. So now we just see our W. Perfect. Now, if you want, you can use a bigger shape or a bigger brush, and you make your brush bigger, the W is going to be bigger. For here, I'm just sticking with 100. You know, typically, again, neon is thin tubing. This is probably actually even a little thicker than most neon would be. So 100 for this size image is what's working fine for us. Now, it's time to add some layer styles and completely transform the way that this flat shape looks. So we're going to go layer, layer style, and we're going to start with an inner glow. And a couple things we want to change here with this inner glow. Number one, we want to set the blend mode to normal. We want to set the opacity to something, you know, maybe 90. Let's try 90 here to start. And we want to go ahead and change the color to, again, I've got a note here, 8F6500. It's this brownish orange color, or really brown. Hit OK. And we want to change the choke to 10%. And the size to, let's go with 50%. All right, so we're really rounding off our shape, really making it look less like a flat shape and more like maybe something that could be a tube. Needs a bit of work still, yes, I know, but we're getting there. The next blend mode we want to use is the satin blend mode. And the satin blend mode is pretty interesting. In our case, it's going to be adding this kind of cool line of color down the middle of our tube. So go ahead and select satin. Right now, it makes it look terrible. But right off the bat, we're going to change the color, and that's going to change a lot. We're going to go ahead and we're going to set this color to FFB 30F. Yes, kind of an orange color. You can see right there, it's already changed quite a bit. Hit OK. And we're going to change the blend mode to normal. There's normal. And I want to go ahead and jack the opacity up to 100%. I'm going to change the distance to 35%. We're going to leave the angle, by the way, at 1920. That's fine. Size is going to be 40 pixels for size. There we go. 40 pixels for size. And then the contour, we're going to choose this guy right here. I believe it's called cone. I think if we stay rolled over it for a second, it'll pop up and tell me. Yes, cone inverted. That's what we want right there. And now that I'm looking at this, I actually want to make this a bit brighter. Let's go ahead with more of a yellowish color. There we go. Now we can actually see that running down the middle of our shape. That's more like what I'm looking for. Hit OK. And there we go. The satin. You can see what's happened. After the satin layer style, we want to go ahead and throw an outer glow on this. And the outer glow, the blend mode, is actually going to stay at screen. And we'll reduce the opacity a little bit, something, maybe around 65. And the color is going to be about the same color we used there for our satin. Something like this should be just fine. Hit OK. And the size, we just need to increase the size to about 40 pixels to something we can see. Maybe even a little higher than 40. Let's go with 60. There we go. That's not too bad. And whoop, don't hit OK yet. The next thing we want to do after this is apply a drop shadow. Now the drop shadow, we're going to set the blend mode. Let's set the blend mode to normal and leave the opacity at 75. But what we want to make sure we do is go ahead and really increase the distance. So I can jack the distance up to like 80. And then, again, the size, bring that up to about 90. So really push them through the roof, okay? You can really see it looks like that neon's, now out away from the wall a little bit. All right, great. So now that we've done that, we're ready to go ahead and hit OK. And one thing we now want to do, now that we've placed all those styles, is want to reduce the fill opacity of the overall layer to, let's say, 70%. And reducing the fill opacity basically is just going to reduce the actual layer contents, this stuff, not all those effects we applied. So right here you got this fill. We're just going to drag that back. Maybe something like 75 will work. Yeah, right about there. So you can really start to almost see through it. That's great because now it's starting to look more like this glass tube with this sort of lava lamp material sort of looking stuff flowing through it. All right, great. So now that we've done that, we're ready to move on to the next step. And the next step here is going to be creating that sort of fuzzy fill electron material that runs through neon that you can't really see, but you'd like to think you can see it because it seems like it's kind of a cool theory. I don't really know what it's called, but it's basically the light beam that's going to be running through the center of our glass neon tube. And it's going to be pretty easy to create that, but we need to go ahead and create a new layer first, so select the Create New Layer icon, and we're going to name this layer Fuzzy. And we're going to grab the brush tool. And we need to open a new set of brushes here. Right now we're just using the basic brushes. Select this little silver arrow, and it's the little flyout menu. And just choose the calligraphy brushes. And we're going to hit OK, replace those brushes. And we want to use the 35 pixel brush. Right here on the top row, it's sort of a flat laying, angled 35 pixel brush. Not the sort of bigger one here at the bottom. It's the flat, thin one. Now that we've done that, we're going to go Window, Brushes to open up the Brushes panel, and we're just going to check on Shape Dynamics. And here in the Shape Dynamics, I already have it done. You want to boost your size jitter up to 100%, angle jitter up to 100%, and roundness jitter to 100%. It's going to give you sort of this spiky look. We're going to close this guy, and we're going to go ahead and set our foreground color to, let me see if I can find where I have it written down right here. We want to choose FFD 76. It's sort of, this light orange / yellowish sort of color. Hit OK. And we want to go ahead and just stroke our path that we have created before. So here's our path. Select that guy, right click, and choose stroke. Again, using the brush, do not simulate pressure. Hit OK. There we go. We have our initial bit of fuzz running through our neon tube. To brighten things up a bit, we're going to go ahead and set the layer blend mode to screen. You're going to see it's going to give it just a little pop. Great. And now this is kind of a cool little trick that we're going to use to make this neon look like there are maybe multiple lines of this zigzagginess running through it and interacting with one another. We're going to go up here to Filter and choose Distort Zigzag. And here in Zigzag, we're going to start by setting our amount to 15 and ridges to 10. The style is Pond Ripples. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. You're going to see it's going to kind of make this go a little crazy. We don't quite want it to be that crazy, but we sort of do. So we're going to go Edit Fade Zigzag. You have to do this right after you create your zigzag. So Edit Fade Zigzag, and we're going to fade this back to 50%. And you can see it sort of just reduces the opacity of our zigzagginess and reinstates our initial fuzzy line. So now we have sort of this craziness happening around it. And we're going to do that again. We're going to go Filter, Distort Zigzag, but we're going to set the amount to -15, essentially pushing our craziness in the other direction. So we're going to hit OK. And then again, Edit Fade Zigzag and bring it back to 50%. Hit OK. And we have just created sort of a cool, sort of fuzzified effect. And now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and create a new layer. We're going to name this Fuzzy White. And we're going to use that same calligraphy brush. So make sure we still have that brush selected. There it is. And we're going to go ahead and paint using white. So we're going to hit the D key, which is going to give us our default foreground background color, and then X to move white to the foreground. Go to the Paths panel, right-click our path, choose Stroke Path, and again, using the brush, do not simulate pressure. Hit OK. There we go. We have our white. Select anywhere out here to deselect the path, and go back to the Layers panel. Back here in the Layers panel, we just want to set the blend mode to, let's try Overlay. All right, that looks pretty cool. Maybe a little bit too intense, so we'll just reduce the opacity to maybe 80, 75, 80, something like that. Great. Now that we've done that, we just want to boost the brightness and saturation of our overall neon shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to control-click the neon base layer thumbnail here. That's our original, W shape right down here. So I'm going to control-click on that thumbnail to load that as a selection, and I'm going to go Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Hue Saturation, and here I'm going to hit OK. And because we have this selection, you can see that we automatically have a layer mask, which is only going to target that W shape. Great. Because we have that, what we're going to do is just boost saturation here and bring brightness up just a touch. Great. Now that we've done that, we are ready to go on and make the holes in the wall and add a little bit of a glow beneath this, like you would normally see coming from neon. But just real quick before we go on, note also that you can swap the hue here using hue saturation and really change the total look of your neon. The only thing you may want to do is if you go with something like red, you definitely want to make sure you go and change the outer glow because that's still orange and it looks pretty funky. However, I'm going to set that back to 0 and stick with orange. Great. Now that we've done that, I'm going to collapse the adjustments panel and we're going to go ahead and let's create the holes in the wall first. You know what? Actually, no. We're going to create the glow first, come to think of it, because we're going to group some layers up at the end. So in order to create the glow, we're going to select the neon base layer, and we want to add a layer beneath this. So with that layer selected, hold down your Command or Control key and select Create New Layer. It's going to drop a layer below that. We're going to double click and name it Glow. Now that we've done that, grab the regular old lasso tool. And what I want to do is go ahead and just draw sort of like a big outline shape that roughly follows the contour of our neon. Now we're going to be blurring or feathering the heck out of this selection. So really, you just want to sort of get a rough contour. Don't be too picky. And then go Select, Modify, Feather. And for this size image, we're going to go ahead and feather at 200 pixels, which is a lot. Voila. This is now feathered. Now, we just want to go in and fill this with kind of an orange that we sample from somewhere on the neon. So I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool, and I'm just going to choose one of these sort of middle oranges. I don't want to go too bright, something like that. And I'm just going to hit Alt Backspace or Option Delete if I was on a Mac, and fill that in. Great. Now we have a nice glow underneath it. Doesn't really look that realistic, so we need to go ahead and make a couple changes. I'm going to hit Command or Control D first to deselect. And I want to set the blend mode of this layer to color. So I'm going to go up and set it to color. You can see we're starting to get more of a realistic effect around this neon, but still not quite as realistic as we like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this glow layer by just selecting it, dragging it, and dropping it onto the new layer icon. Now that I've done that, I'm going to set the layer blend mode to color dodge. And this is really going to make things bright. Way, way too bright. So I'm going to try reducing the opacity down to about 30. And I like it. I like it right there. I might actually reduce the opacity of the color layer here as well. Something that makes it look a little too green. Let me boost it a little bit more. Let me boost it up around 85. And there we go. All right, cool. So now that we've done that, the only thing left to do is draw a couple holes in the wall and sort of mask off the tip of our little neon tube creation here. So what I want to do is select these 3 neon layers. These 3 guys right here, from neon base to fuzzy white. And I just want to hit Command or Control G. That's going to group them into a group. And we can name it anything we want. I'm going to name it Neon Tube. And I want to apply a mask to this layer. So I'm going to go Layer, Layer Mask, Reveal All. All right, so just a big white mask. That's not going to do anything for us right now, but it's going to in just a moment. Select the layer beneath here, Glow Copy, and create a new layer. And we're going to name that layer Holes. And you got it. We're going to paint a couple holes onto this layer using our brush, using that same 35 pixel calligraphy brush. Remember, it's all scattered, so that's good because we want the edges of our hole to kind of look a little rough. So make sure we're painting with black. And, well, there we go. I don't know what happened there for a second. And just paint kind of, it can just be a big old rough-looking hole. It really doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just, a guy just took a big drill and just bored a hole right in the side of this brick wall. And that's essentially what we're trying to recreate. All right, like so. Great, so now that we've done that, we're ready to just go ahead, select the big white mask here. Back to the brush tool. We're going to load our basic brushes again. Hit OK. And we're just going to choose, let's go with the 300 pixel soft edge brush. The hardness there is set to 0. And we're painting with black. And we're going to go ahead and just paint away some of what we see here. All right, great. So now that we've done that, if you see any spots left in there, basically all you want to do is select on your holes layer and paint with black. It probably just means you missed a little area, and our hue saturation layer up here is really making you pay the price. So just with my big soft edge brush, painting in black, I'm just going to paint right over those spots. You can see they go right away. So just like that, we have created this very cool, very realistic neon tube effect. It's coming right out of the wall. And there you have it. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Please go check out the site. That's www.tutvid.com. Thanks for watching.